Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. My name is Katarina. I am so excited about today's video. This is going to be a tag. When I saw this tag I knew right away that I'm going to do this. This tag is called the Eyeshadow Singles Tag and it is created by Hayleigh. Hayleigh is really amazing. I don't feel that I can call a lot of people here on YouTube my YouTube friends, but I do think that I can call Hayleigh a YouTube friend. She's amazing, she's often commenting. I do watch a lot of her videos. She just has so creative and fun video ideas. She is also an amazing project planner. I'm always so excited to watch her project plan updates, and she's great at panning eyeshadows. So I really do love her content, and I do think that if you haven't seen her yet, you would probably enjoy her content if you like mine. So I will of course link Hayleigh's channel down below. The Eyeshadow Singles Tag has been created once before by Zein. I'm sure I didn't pronounce that right. That one was about a year and a half ago, and I saw the tag when Zein did it, but back then I didn't have that much singles, so I didn't do the tag myself. However, now I do have way more singles thanks to the potting. So here we are doing this tag, and I actually love this tag that Hayleigh created because this one has questions about the potting, and most of my singles are depotted eyeshadows, so this fits to my collection really well. So there is 12 questions, and the question number 1 is: how many singles slash depotted shades do you have? In total, when I count all of my singles, I do have 91 single eyeshadows in my collection. Of those 91, 20 are loose eyeshadows. Then I do have at the moment one pressed eyeshadow in a compact. I do not really like those eyeshadows, I don't want them into my collection, but I got one from a subscription box, but I'm probably going to declutter it just because it's in like a bronzy color that is pretty, yes, but I don't need because I have a ton of those colors already. And then I do have 70 magnetic singles living in my magnetic palettes, and of those 11 are singles that I have actually bought myself. That has been quite a while, I will say. All of those are the old round panned Makeup Geek eyeshadows, and then 59 of my magnetic singles are depotted eyeshadows from different eyeshadow palettes. Question number 2: what brands do you typically purchase singles from? I really don't purchase singles. As I said, most of my magnetic singles are depotted, and I do have some old Makeup Geek singles, and I will say I'm not that interested in buying more from Makeup Geek. If I was to purchase singles, I would go for lesser known indie brands. I think if I am going to buy singles more, the first brand that I'm going to try is M Cosmetics. They are a Canadian indie brand and they do have so beautiful colors. I feel most of their singles are neutrals, but they also do have some more colorful shades, but their colors are not like super intense. They are just a little bit more muted. They are still really beautiful. They, for example, do have some beautiful teals, some olive greens and stuff like that, but it's not like they do have these really bright colors. They also do have some pressed glitters, but they do have so beautiful neutral eyeshadows, so I for sure want to try them out at some point. However, right now I really do not have a lot of space in my magnetic palettes, and I don't want to add more storage space to my singles, so I don't want to purchase more singles before I have either finished up some of my older singles, or some of them are starting to be at the age where they're probably going to expire pretty soon. So if they expire and if I have more space in the existing palettes that I do have right now, I might purchase some singles from indie brands. And talking about the storage, question number 3 is: how do you like to store your singles? I actually do have an entire playlist of single eyeshadows. I will link that down below. There's not too many videos there, but in spring I depotted some of my palettes, so that's in that playlist. Also, I swatched all of my singles, and then there are a couple of videos of organizing my singles. I do have 2 palettes where I do store my singlets in. So first is this beautiful leopard print palette from Tarte. I absolutely love this. Unfortunately, this is no longer available. Tarte has discontinued this palette, which sucks. But if you are interested in any of Tarte's magnetic palettes, I do think that based on this palette they are great quality. This one also comes with a huge high quality mirror in it. This is what I call my go-to magnetic palette. I am doing at the moment the Panning Solitaire project pan for a couple of more months. There are quite a bit of those shades that are in that project. That's why I haven't redone this palette in a while. I think it was in July when I last did this palette from spring to summer, but I didn't feel a need to do it from summer to fall. But I actually miss doing like a build your palette because I actually want to rotate through my singles, so I missed doing my go-to magnetic palette for different seasons. So I promise I will do it next year in every 3 months, and I will start in the very beginning of year. That's coming, but before I have ended my Panning Solitaire, I don't think it makes sense to redo this. Then I do have another palette that I actually call my storage palette. So this one is a double-sided C palette. So as the name says, it has 2 sides. I bought this palette because I wanted something where I can easily store my eyeshadows, and that's kind of like compact. Plus, I really don't have that good access to a lot of these magnetic palettes unless I created like an Amazon or eBay account, and I don't want to do that. I have been doing really well without purchasing from those websites, and I don't want to create an account just to order a magnetic palette. So I actually got this one from Beauty Bay because C palette is available at Beauty Bay. Anyways, on this palette I do have eyeshadows on 2 sides. On this side I do have mainly matte neutrals. Then there are some like satin eyeshadows, and then the other side is full of different shimmers. Then let me still show you how I store my loose eyeshadows. I do have most of them stored in a couple of like tin boxes. So first is this one from Geek Chick Cosmetics. This one is their Winter Dye collection, and it holds 6 different loose eyeshadows. There's one missing because I do store the one that is in a project pan, and also some other loose eyeshadows that I'm currently using because they are seasonally appropriate. Those I store on top of my vanity, but then these I don't reach for that often, so they are on my vanity drawer. And then I do have this like Moomin tin box. And over here I do have some loose eyeshadows. Question number 4. Do you have more of one type of shade than others? I do have a lot of transition shades that look the same, and I do have a lot of deeper browns that look the same. And the reason I do have so much of those is that when I decided to depot my palettes, I decided to keep everything that I like. And I do like brown eyeshadow. So that's why I have kept all of those. Do I need all of those? No. But I enjoy them. But yeah, I do have so much of brown eyeshadow that I probably cannot go through everything before some of it starts to expire. Question number 5. Do you prefer pressed singles or loose singles? I definitely do prefer pressed singles. Loose eyeshadows, I find they can be quite messy and they can be really hard to make to work, at least on my case. First I was really struggling with them. Glitter glue helps. If I don't use glitter glue with a loose eyeshadow, almost always when it is a shimmery loose eyeshadow, the eyeshadow is just going to like fall out and fade throughout the day, but glitter glue helps it to stay vibrant and stay on. But yeah, I don't really enjoy loose eyeshadows that much. They are messy, they are more effort, and they are a little bit more annoying to store, so I have decided that I will no longer purchase them. In 2018, when I found some indie brands, I got so excited because a lot of my loose eyeshadows have really cool themes in them. Like I do have Game of Thrones themed, I do have the Lord of the Rings themed, I do have Harry Potter themed. I do have like one eyeshadow that is really cool. This one is from a brand Aromaly, and Over there it is. It is a beautiful like coppery eyeshadow. This eyeshadow is called Lacquerta. I don't know if you have watched Vikings. I used to watch it, but I always get bored with TV shows when they continue for too long. But Lacquerta is such a badass. I do love a strong woman like her. So yeah, I mean, how cool is that? I feel loose eyeshadows, they can have beautiful finishes sometimes, but they are just a little bit more effort. So in future I don't want to buy them, but the ones that I do have, I do really want to enjoy them. Question number 6 is, what is your favorite single that you own? I will say that it has been quite a while since I have used all of my singles. I kind of feel I would want to rotate through my singles collection more and play with my singles to be truly able to answer this question. However, I just had to figure out something, so even though I said that I don't enjoy loose eyeshadows that much, and even though I don't reach to them all the times, I will need to answer that one of my loose eyeshadows is my favorite. So yeah, this eyeshadow is from Geek Chic Cosmetics and it is one of their single players eyeshadows. By the way, Geek Chic Cosmetics went out of business, which is so sad because they had so cool collections. This one is one of their single players eyeshadows, and that means that this eyeshadow is from a previous collection that they had, and this particular eyeshadow comes from the Fellowship collection, so obviously the Lord of the Rings themed, and this eyeshadow is called I Am No Man. As I said, I do love badass women who go and fight like a man. Let me show you the swatch of this eyeshadow. This eyeshadow is beautiful too. It's nothing special, but it is like kind of like a cooler toned shimmery champagne color. When I go for a cool toned neutral look, this is the most perfect lid shade. Next is the question number 7. What is your least favorite single that you own? This is actually a really easy one for me to answer. It currently lives in my go-to magnetic palette over here, and it is this reddish eyeshadow over here. So this eyeshadow is actually depotted from the Juvia's Place the Douche eyeshadow palette, which I know some of you are going to leave after I say this one, but in my opinion that's like one of the most overhyped palettes. I think in that palette there were some beautiful shades, but overall I wasn't the biggest fan of the color story, and what comes to the quality, it wasn't the best what Juvia's Place can do. Some of the eyeshadows were amazing, but some were quite Dutch. I didn't like the palette and I depotted it in spring. This eyeshadow I was originally supposed to declutter, so this one is the shade, what is it even called? Crepes. In my opinion, this shade didn't really make any sense in the Douche palette. The palette overall is really cool toned and pastel-y, and then there is a random warm shade that really clashes with all of the other shades, so that's one reason why it wasn't my favorite in the palette, and I was supposed to declutter it. However, it swatches beautifully and that's why I decided to keep it. So there you can see the eyeshadow swatched. It is like a muted sort of red. I was supposed to use this one during spring or summer, and I didn't end up using it before September, and when I used it I hated my look. I think shades like this can so easily make me look like I'm sick. I don't like it, and I have decided that in my next declutter it's going to go, and that's probably going to be pretty soon. Okay, next we will get into the questions of depotting. I'm really excited about this. The question number 8 is, do you have any tips for depotting shadows? So my biggest tip is to really consider if the palette is something you actually want to depot or not, because, you know, there's not going back. And there are always the risk of casualties and that you break your eyeshadows when you depot. So consider that too. If you decide that you want to depot a palette, I would recommend to go from there depending on what kind of palette it is. In some palettes there are magnetized pans, like Colourpop has these, and I think Natasha Denona has these, but most brands do have something else. So if you have a palette that is in cardboard packaging, you can just rip it open. You don't need to use heat or anything. So Kailee Bout there has a great tutorial of how to rip your palette open. Then there are brands that make either plastic packaging or like tin packaging. So those, if you want to get the eyeshadows out, I would recommend you to use heat. I personally do use a straightening iron that is really great tool to help you to depot eyeshadows. And if you want to see how I depotted some of my eyeshadows, I do have on my singles playlist one video where I actually did some depotting, so check that out if you want to see how I do it. Also, I will say that there are some palettes that you cannot depot, where the eyeshadows are not pressed into pans, but they are pressed into the plastic background. So my Baby Panda palette that I had for a couple of months this year, but I gave up with it because I was so sick of it. It was the e.l.f. Prism eyeshadow palette in Naked. That was a palette like that. And I do have one palette that I do believe is the same. I'm not 100% sure because I haven't hit pan on this palette yet, but it looks like the eyeshadows are not in pans. So this is the Olivia Palermo palette, and when you look it at close, it doesn't look like there's any like shiny metal pan, and also I doubt that there would be like this shaped pans. So one more advice would be that if you decide to depot something, make sure that you can actually see the edge of the pan and it is something that you can actually depot. Next is question number 9. Why do you depot shadows? Do you regret it? The main reason why I end up depotting a palette is that I don't like all of the shades. Like for example the Juvia's Place de Douche eyeshadow palette. Well, that one, first of all, the color story didn't make sense to me, so that could be a reason for me to depot the palette if I wanted to have most of the colors, but not in that color story. And there's actually only one that I do regret depotting, and it is the BH Cosmetics Carly Bible Deluxe Edition palette. So the reason why I decided to depot this palette was that I don't like palettes where there are eyeshadows and cheek products in the same palette. The BH Cosmetics Carly Bible Deluxe Edition palette was just like a highlighter and eyeshadow palette, and I didn't like the concept. So I decided to depot the palette. However, it was the most difficult palette to depot. It looks like it is a cardboard palette when you first look at it, but in fact it is a plastic packaging just layered into cardboard. So it was a really challenging one to depot. I cracked a lot of my eyeshadows when I was depotting the palette. The pans are like really thin. A lot of them look really rough right now. I can show you an example. For example, this shade over here is from that palette, and as you can see, it's looking pretty rough. A lot of the eyeshadows from that palette were cracked when I depotted, and I had to repress the shades. I don't know, because the pans are crooked and ugly, I just don't enjoy them anymore. I know it shouldn't bother me that much, but it kinda does. And yeah, it's not the same anymore. But I do think with the Carly Bible Deluxe Edition palette, even though it was one of my favorite palettes once I still had it, it's not that special to me than the original Carly Bible palette. If you don't know, that one was my first Panda palette. Also, I do love Carly Bible. Oh my gosh, I don't know if you care, but she's pregnant with her boyfriend. I am so happy for her. So yeah, I love Carly, and the original palette was so special to me. The Deluxe Edition one, not necessarily so much, and after depotting it, I just kind of like want to pan my way through the shades as quickly as possible. So maybe that one I regret depotting a little bit, but not that much. I still had all of the shades. Now I have used up a couple of the shades. Question number 10. Do you have any tips for not neglecting your singles? So, as I said previously, I really do like build your own palette sort of thing. So the way I do it is that I do build my go-to magnetic palette for every season. As I already told you, I do have in my storage palette shades that I really don't reach for at the moment, but then everything that I do reach for are in this go-to magnetic palette. Laura has been also doing a great version of Build Your Own Palette where she creates one for every month, and those are one of my favorite videos to watch. So yeah, definitely if you do have a lot of singles, I would recommend you to get one smaller magnetic palette. So maybe the size of this, at least not bigger, or then maybe a smaller palette that holds like 9 standard size eyeshadows, and then selecting some singles that you want to focus on there for however long you want to have them. I think with a bigger palette like this, a season works well, but with a smaller palette maybe you want to change it every month. Question number 11. If you had to choose to only keep all of your singles / depotted shades or all of your palettes, which would you choose? I found this question so funny because Laura said that she hates this question, but I was like, oh my gosh, I love this question. This is my favorite question. I would for sure keep my singles. I would get rid of my palettes and I wouldn't even miss them. I mean, maybe I would. I don't know. My answer might be a little bit different on different days, but just really recently I have again felt quite overwhelmed with my makeup collection. Not necessarily with my eyeshadow palettes, I don't have that many, I do have 14, so it's not what I used to have back in the days, but still, I feel that it's going to take a long time for me to rotate through all of these palettes, and to get use out of all of the shades, it's going to take so much time. These type of questions and challenges always remind me of my fantasy shelf, and my fantasy shelf is kind of like a beauty minimalist. Not necessarily someone who only has like one of each thing and there's kind of like a minimalistic amount of makeup. I do love makeup and I love to look like I am wearing makeup, but my fantasy self would for sure be someone who has a really curated selection of products, and I think it would be so ideal for me to only have singles. So my storage palette and then my go-to palette, and then I could just create here a seasonal palette however I want to. Oh my gosh, that would be my dream. But then the reality, my real self is someone who loves stuff too much and who cannot control their impulses. I mean, I don't know, I have recently, and I'm probably going to talk about this in a Get Ready With Me video or somewhere, but I have recently been overwhelmed with my makeup, and it's quite bad because I have days when I feel bad and I want to purchase more, and I don't think it matters if I get a couple of products more, but then there are days when I actually want to get rid of everything, and it can be really hard to find a balance when you do have a head like this. So I think I am in a need of a really strict low buy because of this, because I really don't know anymore what I want with my collection. But yeah, anyways, it would kind of like be the dream of mine to just have like a really limited selection of singles, like maximum 100 singles I think would be ideal. The last question, question number 12. Why do you like to purchase singles? As I said already, I don't really buy singles. I haven't bought a single eyeshadow in a really long time. The singles in my collection are mainly depotted. But if in future I go towards purchasing more singles, it probably will be just so that I can really only get eyeshadows into my collection that I want. Because in palettes there's always something that you maybe don't want or you don't end up loving. With singles you kind of need to be selective. Sometimes I will say I find it can be really overwhelming to go to a brand website, like an indie brand, and when there are a lot of singles it can be really overwhelming and hard to decide what you want to pick. If you kind of like have in mind what you want, what kind of colors you need, I guess it's easier. But yeah, that's everything for today. This tag was so much fun. I really do enjoy my singles. Cannot wait for the new year and that I can redo my Tarte palette, because I'm getting so sick of the same colors that I have been looking at for 5 months now, or 4 months, I'm not exactly sure, and I do have dog hair on my face. So yeah, I think it has been 4 months since I have redone this palette, so I'm starting to be pretty sick of it and I just want to redo it. For winter I want some cooler tones here, and yeah. But that's everything for today. Remember to check out Hayleigh's video. Also Laura and Kailee did this because they did a collaboration, so I can link their videos down below too. Thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know if you do have a lot of singles in your collection. Thank you so much for watching this video and see you on my next one. Bye bye.